All right, we're live. Hi, guys. My name is Dalton. Fede, thank you for joining today. We're just going to have a brief little intro. This is the first time we're doing this here. Basically, the idea behind this is just a quick little show with NFT-fi, real-world asset type founders that are building in the space. Fede and I actually got introduced about a week ago. We had a pretty iconic call. Like you guys know, I'm here in Mexico City. We had an earthquake mid-call. It was iconic, but Fede...
Within 30 seconds from the beginning of the call.
It was by far one of the most interesting calls I've had. But Fede, thank you so much for hopping on. I'm excited to get to chat with you today.
Thank you so much, and thank you for having me on the show.
Yeah, no. So we'll just hop right into it. Fabrica, can you give me the 411, a little bit about how you guys started, kind of what your journey is personally, and then we'll get into the details.
Yeah, absolutely. So in a few words, what we do at Fabric is that we bring real estate on chain. So we turn real properties into NFTs, so you can trade them, borrow against them, and use them as a digital primitive with a real asset connected to it. And in terms of myself, I'm Federico. I'm the CEO and founder of Fabrica. We started the company about 5 years ago now. Previously, I've run other startups. I come from Italy. I've run a successful startup in Italy that was called Tonight.eu, very similar to Yelp. I ran that for about 10 years. Then I worked for Vodafone and Vodafone Ventures, and I came to California. When I came and moved here to California, I bought a house in San Francisco, and it was like a fun and painful experience. And I discovered how real estate works in terms of how you close a transaction and like all the paperwork involved and so on. I was pretty early in crypto and was fascinated by the blockchain and how it can be used to represent assets and transfer them and so on. I say like, well, it's kind of evident to me that eventually all assets will come on chain and real estate is the largest asset class in the world. How do we make it happen? And that's how the company started.
Yeah, dude. So I was introduced to you, like a week ago. And when we had this conversation, I was just like, okay, real estate on chain. There's obviously some regulatory headaches here. There's obviously some hoops to jump through. And especially you coming from Italy to the US, like that in and of itself is a huge like hurdle to be buying property and things like that. How did this on-chain real estate happen? You said 5 years ago you started this process. Was that with NFTs as well? Like how were you guys tokenizing real estate? What was going on when you guys started?
Well, we started looking at the technology, and NFTs were starting to begin. It was back the time of the CryptoKitties when it was the only thing out there basically, and it was a very appropriate tool to do real estate. So we started playing with NFTs when in the ERC 721 wasn't even a standard. So we're pretty early in the game. Our first smart contract was like before the ERC 721 standard was finalized. And we said, okay, let's play with this thing. So we say, okay, let's buy a plot of land in California, in Santa Cruz, and let's use it as a test case. And that's how we started like designing the system from a legal standpoint and technical standpoint. And we started working with the county, and then we started working with the state, and we discovered how to do it in a way that it's accepted by the existing legal framework. Because the big question here, like we all agree that like bringing real estate on chain is going to be massive. The problem is how you do it and how do you do it with the existing legal framework. And we've found a way to basically retrofit the existing legal framework. So we don't ask counties or states to change their system because it would take way too long. We have designed a model that allows us to on-ramp properties in the existing legal framework.
So I actually we're going to hop in right here. I'm going to show the platform. So this is one of the plots of land. Okay. So I was going through the website and I was like, okay, these are really interesting. This is a plot of land for about 0.15 acres, $2,300. And this is in Sun Valley, Arizona. The part that I thought was most interesting here was that you're out here trying to undercut the floor or send in a low bid. How easy is this to buy like a piece of land? Like you put in this offer right here. If the seller agreed to this price, then what would happen? Like would you just get the NFT sent to you? Like what is the process there?
Yes. So what you were looking at is both a plot of land and an NFT at the same time. So when you click on buy now, and if you go ahead with the transaction or put a bid and it gets accepted, the NFT transfers immediately to the buyer, and that's it basically. So you are performing an on-chain transaction. You can see it on OpenSea, you can see it on Etherscan, and the moment you receive the NFT, you are the owner of the plot of land. So it is that simple as buying a JPEG.
That's crazy. I'm gonna share a couple other tabs here. This is a farm in Haxton, Colorado, correct? There's some
Correct.
pictures here as well. Um, this is actually a massive piece of land. I think it was 330 acres or $330,000, 162 acres. Um,
Correct.
that's pretty incredible that you guys can just kind of tokenize these assets and then just put it to work. Like I think that that's something that I've spent a lot of money on JPEGs. And there's a couple of these pieces of land that I'm like, okay, 2.3 thousand in USDC. Like I've spent that definitely this week, like buying cartoon JPEGs. But to have like something sent to me where I have a tangible asset, once I receive that asset, if I wanted to say, I don't know, go out to the land, visit the land, do something like that, I can go out there and it's mine. Like, do I burn the NFT or like how does that process work? Like of claiming the land once I buy it?
The moment you own the NFT, the land is yours. So you can do whatever you want with it. If you are in an area where like the property is zoned for development, you could build a house on it or you could do whatever you want with it. You own the land. It's like you get 100% of the rights that comes with the land.
Mm-hmm.
And you don't need to burn the NFT. You can use it. You can use the land as you are the owner of a property. And to give you context, like we have people who bought one of those inexpensive plots of land and starting like doing things on them, like cleaning the plots and like they want to build something on them, or like we are as we're talking, another customer is going through the on-ramp process of a plot of land in the middle of Los Angeles, and that's a $600,000 plot of land. So there used to be a building there, and like now it's just a plot of land, and he wants to develop it. So it's a legit plot of land in the middle of Los Angeles.
So the on-ramp process. So if I'm already a landowner, so here, actually, we're going to get into one of these. We have NFT finance and then we have real world assets, right? And you're talking about using these plots of land and things like that. So you have like the real world way of using it. Like you can build on it and things like that. But then you also have this like interesting NFT-fi infrastructure that you guys are building out. So I was introduced to you via the guys over at NiftyFi. And NiftyFi were like, yo, these guys are tokenizing real estate. And this is like a really interesting real world asset use case that you can actually take loans out on these pieces of land. I thought that was really interesting because like as you're talking about like doing real world stuff with it and like me talking about burning the NFT, you don't have to do that, right? Like you can have like the real world and the digital world and you can make these things work for you. How many loans have you guys seen taken out on these pieces of land at this point?
So we just announced the partnership with NiftyFi. So currently we have 2 loans ongoing, and we have more in the pipelines, but we are seeing like we're talking with like lenders who are interested in like deploying capital to NFTs backed by real land and valuable properties. So I think we'll see many more in the upcoming weeks.
Dude, that is insane, especially to see like a $600,000 plot of land in Los Angeles. That's huge. That's big time.
Yes, and let me say one thing here, that if you think of it, it's not something new. I mean, you can own land out there without an NFT. What changes is that wrapping it in an NFT gives you like superpowers to your land. So you can all of a sudden you have both like the real asset and the digital asset, and you can get the benefits of both worlds. So you can get a loan instantly, which is something that you can do on your house through the traditional system, and you would get like pretty good conditions with a bank despite the current interest rates. But if you own a plot of land, it's very hard to go to a bank and ask for a loan on something that it's worth, I don't know, $50,000. Because the paperwork, the process, the fingerprints and rubber stamps, the whole thing makes it so expensive and long that most banks will tell you like, hey, you know what, we're not going to do it. So keep your plot of land, we're not giving you a loan. While on-chain, that changes completely. Because you have an asset that all of a sudden can be it's a digital primitive that you can operate instantly. So you can find a lender and instantly initiate a loan with them without all the overhead of an old school process.
Right, right,
And
right.
that allows people like property owners to unlock the capital in the properties that they own. And that is massive. We're talking about like in the US alone, there are like over 1 million plots of land. Can you believe it?
Mm-hmm.
The average
That's dude.
value
That
is, and the average value is like $40,000, and they can't get a loan out of them.
right.
We're bridging two massive things like the real estate, the off-chain real estate with the on-chain rails, and
Uh
get the
huh.
most of the two worlds.
Well, and see, this is something that I see all the time, especially like I'm a very active trader, and if I have to go to a centralized exchange to say off ramp or something like that, you just see that it's such a massive pain in the ass, dude. Like if you transfer to somewhere, whether it be a centralized exchange or whatever, you then have to play by their rules. So like, oh, we're locking this up because this could be fraudulent activity. It's going to take 72 hours, could take 7 days, and you're basically stuck in this situation. And that is basically that's my experience with messing with centralized exchanges. I've never owned land or anything like that, and I can't even imagine kind of the headache that you have to go through to get access to that liquidity. And I think something that you guys are doing a very good job of, especially with that the infrastructure that you're building out with NiftyFi. You were showing me before the call how easy it is to take out a loan on some of this land, right? If and I just really want to kind of get us into that mindset here is like if somebody already owns land, they
Mm-hmm.
can go via the on ramp process, and like you were talking about the $600,000 piece of land in Los Angeles. How easy is that process? How quick is the turnover there? And like how instant is this liquidity? And can you kind of go into detail there with the NiftyFi infrastructure that you guys are building out?
Yeah, absolutely. And I think that that's frankly the part that I'm most proud of what we've built is like how easy it is to on-ramp new properties. So you can literally go to our website, log in, and click on on-ramp, and we ask you like where is your property like, and you can provide a street address or APN, which is the parcel number, or even just the GPS codes of your property, and we pull all information that we can find about the property from county records and other data providers, yeah, on their on ramp. And from there, we set up all the legal documentation that is required to create a legal instrument that we use to connect the NFT to the property. And we take care of all the details. So if the property is in a certain state or county, the documentation is different from another place and so on. And all that complexity, we take care of it. From a user standpoint, you literally type in the address, click on ramp, sign the document, and you get the NFT within a few hours to a few days, depending on how fast the county is at recording the documents.
And so, as for, I'm going to share this map real quick. This is the current map of land that is available to buy on
Mm-hmm.
on Fabrica. So,
Correct.
do you guys operate just in the United States? And do you operate in all 50 states? Like, obviously, there's legal framework in each and every state that you guys are selling land in. What does that process kind of look like, and how accessible is this to people that live in the United States or own land in the United States?
So we currently operate in all 50 states. We started from California, and over time added state by state, and like we discovered like the differences between one county and another. We got over 20 licenses to operate in all the states. So we are an escrow company, we are a title agency, we are real estate brokers. So depending on the state, we use a different setup, but we do operate in all 50 states now.
Bro, these are unreal,
That's
man. Like
beautiful. Yeah,
I'm
I
like
love
this
it.
is
That's a beautiful property.
I am absolutely shook at how beautiful some of these properties are.
Come
I'm
on,
like
buy it. Buy.
this
When are
is
you waiting? Buy it live.
that is I I can't get over how easy that is because like okay, look, I'm 28 or I just turned 29. I'm 29 years old and like being from the US, we've dealt with like these atrocious economic developments throughout my lifetime, right? Like I don't know very many people that own houses, right? And so like to me, like I've rented my whole life. My parents have rented. Like the thought of going in and buying something is kind of daunting. And I'm like, oh, that has to be a headache. If getting health insurance is a headache, like it has to be a headache to buy land, right? And that's kind of like my reference point for some of this stuff. But then to go through this and see how much land you guys do have for sale, it's pretty astonishing.
Thank you. And I think you touched a good point. Like, so we started from one use case that is like, let's make it easy for people to buy land. And you can go there and buy land within 30 seconds. And that's massively better than the off-chain equivalent traditional process. Then we said, okay, that was one use case. What's the next use case you want to tap into? It's like, let's borrow against, let allow people to borrow against their land. And with the Nifty5 partnership, we are doing this. And it's super easy. You get like you plot land, you see all your loan offers, and you click on borrow, and you have the capital within 30 seconds, which is like insane, especially compared to the legacy world.
Right.
And then the big question is like, what's going to be the next use case? We are really building infrastructure to enable several use cases. So you can think of fractional ownership, so more people buying together into a property, or you can imagine like DAOs setting up funds like real estate investments funds or something similar like on chain. Or you can imagine new business models where like you have like rent to own. It's something that we have seen on the off chain as an interesting model where you basically pay your rent, but little by little you're buying the house where you live into, and it makes a lot of sense. I think all these use cases will move on chain, and the flexibility of smart contracts will allow us to see and to build new use cases, and more companies will come up with new ideas that we can't even think of. And I'm so excited to see what people will build on top of this.
So we're gonna start seeing buy now, pay later land on Fabrica and stuff like that. That's super cool.
Absolutely, that's like in the next few months. It's on the roadmap.
Yeah, let's go. Well, see, this is something that Jen and I talk about all the time. Like, obviously, we do this show, and we're consistently talking about real world assets, and I have started to see like real estate perps with Parcel. I know I have a couple other perp platforms that are focusing on real world assets, and kind of seeing this kind of thought process saying like, okay, it is actually very easy. And it's very exciting to me because like you said, these use cases are going to continue to stem and to grow into new and exciting things. I did want to hop into the stats real quick. So this is the Dune Analytics dashboard that you guys have. As you can see, $1.3 million worth of land. That does not include the.
You should refresh the page. Try to refresh it. Not the whole page in your browser should be already. I'm pretty sure the chart has gone up at least one property since we started talking. Yes, you see it's there.
Yeah, dude. So we have $1.3 million worth of land value, 34 properties, 470 acres of land. And then this is only going to grow, like you were talking about the $600,000 LA plot of land. So that's going to get you guys up to 2 million. Like, how do these numbers make you feel? I know that you referenced earlier before the call that like the legacy contract, you guys had over 200 or 300 pieces of land that went through that process.
Yeah, correct. So what you're looking at now is our latest smart contract, which is like the ERC 1155, and that we released in August. So we basically started from zero again, but on the legacy smart contract, we had on rent almost 300 properties and performed hundreds of transactions already.
Dude, this is getting me excited because I'm about to go back to LA, and I'm like, you know what? There, I saw a piece of land. I'm gonna be out in J Tree for a little bit, and I was like, "There's a piece of land in 29 Palms," and I was like, "I might have to take a run out there." That's super cool.
No investment advices here, right?
Yeah, no, exactly. Exactly. No, so you kind of touched on something that I want to talk about. I was doing my research before the call, and I was just kind of seeing who you guys had interacted with on Twitter and stuff like that. And I noticed that, and you've already referenced it today, kind of groups going in and buying land together. There was one DAO, they're called Cougar DAO. Cougar DAO, the backstory here was basically these guys wanted to these people wanted to get together and pull together funds and then eventually buy or put an offer in on this island called Cougar Island in Idaho. Well, Cougar Island, the auction went off. Like, these guys didn't get access to the land, but they're like, cool, this is still a really good idea. Let's continue on and see kind of what happens here with on-chain real estate and stuff like that. Now these guys have 3 parcels of land, I believe. They have an Airbnb in Memphis, Tennessee. They have the farm that we showed in Colorado. And then they recently just bought a piece of land in Cochise, Arizona, something like that.
Yeah, Cochise County. Yeah.
Uh, Super cool. So how does that kind of work? And are you seeing DAOs interact with this at like a large scale, or is this still very early days?
So the Cougar DAO were very good friends of ours, and they have been experimenting with real estate and on-chain and for quite a bit. And so we started chatting years ago, and we have followed each other to the point where like we have built enough infrastructure that they started saying, hey, we might want to use your platform to tokenize the properties and do more with them. And they started with a small plot of land in Arizona that they bought, and was almost like just to test the system. And then they discovered, oh, the property is actually pretty nice. We can do something with it. And so they started improving it. It's what you're looking at now, which is super cool. And then they decided to bring their farm that they had bought already, and they decided to bring it on Fabrica. So it's now for sale on Fabrica. And they have another Airbnb that they manage as a DAO with the rentals and everything. So that's just an example of what you can build on top of our platform. And to that, we have another small DAO called Hodland DAO. And Hodland, it's a small like DAO between friends, but it basically invests in on-chain properties, and it's also like providing capital on NFTFI as a lender. So it's a pretty interesting model. You can think of a different way to play with a different asset class for some friends who want to do it together. No?
Right.
And I think over time we'll see more and more structured use cases take shape and become big investors in land or properties and following different strategies. For example, I was talking with a land investor recently, and he was telling me, look, I'm considering like going long on this or like investing in this region because of climate change. And he was like telling me like, hey, I think that in the next 10 years, this particular region in Arizona is going to change in terms of value because of how climate change is gonna change how compelling those properties are. So he's buying properties there with a 10 years long investment strategy. And it's pretty interesting, no? So I can imagine a DAO doing something like that, or I can imagine a DAO buying like properties where I don't know, reforestation is needed, and the DAO can raise the capital to plant new trees and hold the property till the trees are in good shape and like and the property is ready to go back on the market, and just maintain it and so on. So you can think of different use cases, but it's very important to provide those organizations a way to interact with assets in a native way directly on chain or as a digital asset, and that's what we do.
Right. So you heard it here first. Buy land up in northern Arizona. Yeah, is that what we're doing?
I don't know.
Your buddy's like, dude, I told him not to say anything. Dude, that's super cool. I'm really interested in this just because like now I live down in Mexico City, right? And I think that like buying apartments or buying houses or buying land in Mexico as a foreigner, like as somebody that doesn't have my citizenship here, it is very difficult for me. It's difficult for me to even rent at this point. Like I have to pay 4 months up front, and they're like just different hurdles that you have to jump through. I think the interesting part of the DAO is that you can, like you said, pull together funds, and like that, those funds that can be from, that international people that want to have exposure to the US real estate and stuff like that. Like there are no limits to how big this can grow. And I think that pulling liquidity together and kind of having an interest to go to these places and to buy these things, and like you're talking about reforestation and the way that this is going to develop is pretty interesting to me.
Yeah, and I think you're hitting another point here that is like, what about cross borders? So if you are a US citizen, like you can buy a plot of land traditionally. It's a bit an annoying process, but I'm sure you would be able to figure it out and like buy it. And it's way more convenient to do it online in one click. But what if you wanted to buy some real estate abroad? What if you wanted to buy like, I don't know if you ever heard of it, like in Italy, I'm from Italy. In Italy, there are like these old towns that basically the government is putting for sale. Sometimes you can buy like them for $1, no? And clearly, those are like interesting things you can do. But as a US person, it would be very complex for you to understand, okay, what's the bureaucracy in Italy? My God, even just thinking about it's like, would keep you far from it. But if you were to tell those people, like, hey, you can actually buy those properties instantly with a tool and a system that you're familiar with, and that opens up like new opportunities and new ways to enable real estate investments or like real estate ownership across the borders. So you could buy a piece of Tuscany tomorrow instantly from your phone, or you could do the same, or like people in Italy could buy properties in the US and so on, which I think it opens up like another use case that it's very interesting.
No, it opens up liquidity huge. Like
Yeah.
that's something here. Like I said, I'm sitting here looking at apartments and stuff like that. And like for me to buy houses or land or something like that here in Mexico would be such a pain in the ass. And I would do it like if I could, right? And I've spoken with real estate agents and I've spoken with my friends that have gone through this process, and I'm just like, dude, that's such a headache. Like I would if I could, I would do it, but I don't want to go through the whole process, right? And I think the cross borders liquidity I think is really interesting. One thing that I'm kind of interested to hear your take on is like how would you index and kind of the like index the land that you guys have. So say at in the future we're going to have 2,500, 3,000 pieces of land for sale. These people aren't going to necessarily know where they're buying the land at, and like unless they're from that area or they've been to that area. Is there ever going to be an opportunity for people like myself that are interested in buying some of this stuff to potentially arbitrage kind of, okay, like we saw this one piece of land earlier. It's like 40 acres in Kingman, Arizona. I've been to Kingman, Arizona. It's super beautiful. And I was like, dude, 40 acres. And it was like $29,000. And I was like, to me, that sounds pretty cheap, right? I don't necessarily know, but is there ever going to be an indexing function where you could say like, okay, this is actually a really good deal? Is that something that you guys would be willing to build? Especially once you get into if you guys ever do expand to say like international places, like international countries or places that we may have never been before, just to see kind of what the deal looks like.
Yeah, it's a good question. So we what we do is that currently we expose and provide what we call a confidence score that gives you like a quick number to get a sense of like some key features about a property, and specifically more about like how the NFT is well connected to the underlying property, because that's key to bring those assets on chain. From there, we could expand to provide more information about a property using like available data. But at the end of the day, I think that investors will want to do their own due diligence to make sure that they're like buying the properties and what are they buying behind the title to the property, you know. And that's something that makes a good investor versus not a good investor. It's like finding the right deals and understanding what's behind it, no? So that's one thing. I think that another thing to consider is that at a certain point, right now we're talking about like, hey, you're buying one plot of land, one specific plot of land. It is important to say that there are like interesting way to put together several assets into pools of assets, and maybe you want exposure to land or to a region and not specifically to one single asset. So similar to what you have seen with pools for traditional NFTs or with real estate investment trust that basically owns several properties and you buy into a share of those trusts. Those are models that could be built on top of our platform. It is probably not something that we're going to do directly, but we expect companies to build on top of our connection with the physical world.
I think you trust DGens too much, because I was like, do due diligence. Like I know some buddies that like throw 5-6 figures into shitcoins that they have no idea what the shitcoin does. But I was like, you tell somebody that they could buy $2,500 worth of land in wherever, and they're gonna be like, it sounds like I can flip it. I love it. I love it. Well, cool. Well, we're reaching the end of this call here. Is there any upcoming catalysts, anything exciting that you want to riff on while we're here? Anything upcoming for Q1 of 2024? This is where you have the opportunity to share the alpha.
Well, Yes, we have plenty of cool things coming. So
Mhm.
we are looking at properties outside of the US. We're looking at fractional ownership. We're looking at partnerships with many big players in the crypto space to enable new use cases. So it's really there are like so many cool things on the roadmap.
Mhm.
All I can say is that just like join our Discord, follow us on Twitter, and we'll have a lot of fun together.
Cool. No, and so we'll be putting this out on YouTube. We'll also be sharing it on Twitter. We'll plug all the Discord and the Twitter profiles and everything like that. Fede, thank you so much for hopping on. This was a ton of fun, and now I'm gonna have to go buy my first piece of land.
Perfect. Thank you. Thank you so
All
much.
right, brother. Bye.
Bye. Take care.